We're at London City Airport. This is the Feel There Embraer E-Jets version 3, the E170. Let's talk about how you can get GSX to work over a network. Yes, it is possible, and I'll show you how. Hello, and welcome back to the channel of occasional content. Today I'm doing a video I've wanted to do for a little while about GSX, and in particular how I get it to work in a networked environment and actually synchronize the activity across both of my machines. Now, if you've been watching the channel for any length of time, you will know that I have a two-channel system. I have a host computer which runs the main sim and powers all of the cockpit displays, the instrument gauges, etc. And it's the machine that you're looking at right now, the display you're looking at, and the sim that you're looking at. But I also have a client computer which generates my outside view on the 180-degree curved screen that you can see on my setup here. One machine can't do all of this, not at a frame rate that would be anything like acceptable, and so like many other people in this situation, I've gone multi-channel. Some people will have a 3 or 4 channel system depending on how they're set up. I've gone for 2 channels, which makes life a little bit easier in a number of ways, although I may well go for a 3-channel system in the not too distant future, and I might talk about that later on in the video. But one thing that I've always wanted to do, and one challenge I've always had with this setup, is trying to get things synchronized between the two machines. Now, Wideview, which is the software that I use to connect the two machines together, does quite a lot of things for you. Obviously, it synchronizes the aircraft position and course, and it synchronizes some of the basic controls, the lights, and it can also synchronize things like the gear and the flaps and the control surfaces. But that's about all it does. And if you want to synchronize other things, you have to come up with other solutions. And in particular, I always wanted to get GSX running so that I could push back and see the pushback truck both on my host computer and also on my client computer at the same time, because the outside view from the client computer, the 180-degree display, is where you as the pilot operating want to see everything happening. The host display is really there just because you have to have a main screen on every instance of the simulator, and also because when I'm making videos like this, I use the display on the host computer to show you exterior scenes and the so-called sightseeing view that I'll pop up from time to time. So I need both of those things synchronized and working at the same time, and you need to have other things synchronized in order to get the simulation to be convincing and effective. For example, AI traffic needs to be synchronized, and that's what you use wide traffic for. GSX, on the other hand, is not something that you can synchronize by design, so there's no capability built into the product to update multiple machines at the same time. There's no networking capability, and whilst you can turn on ground vehicle synchronization in wide traffic, and it will actually copy across all of the GSX vehicles that appear, they don't animate properly. So the animations are obviously under the control of the GSX software, which is not then running on the client machine. It is Wideview, wide traffic, attempting to match the positions of the vehicles, but it doesn't match the animations or the attitude, and it just looks, well, odd. Speaking of traffic, the flight next to me is about to leave. The airport at the moment is just literally full of British Airways Embraers, E170s and E190s, because that apparently is the schedule that Ultimate Traffic Live 2, which I'm currently beta testing, has for this time of day. It's about 7 AM on, I think, a Monday. So we'll let this person go past. We'll let this aircraft go past because otherwise it's going to be quite loud. There it goes. So with GSX, what you would ideally like is for all of the vehicles to be synchronized doing what they're doing. So from the cockpit, you can't see a lot of what goes on with GSX. You can't see them loading the cargo, for example, unless you have a very, very wraparound screen, and even then you'd still need a window that gave you visibility back towards the fuselage, which most of us will not have. So you can see the loaders and the tugs, etc., moving into place, and the baggage carts moving around, and you would be able to see the jetway connecting at a jetway gate, and it would connect off to your left usually, and you could see it docking there. But that's about all that you can see from the main outside view here. Everything else would be happening on the exterior view here on the host, and for the purposes of the video filming, I would obviously watch that and watch it all happening. So I thought to myself, how could I go about making GSX work across multiple machines? And the answer struck me quite simply, which is I need to be able to synchronize keyboard activity across multiple machines. I need to have GSX installed on each of the machines in my sim, so in this case that's 2 machines. I need to have it identically configured, and this is really important. It must be identically configured, and the airport must be identically customized. Everything has to be the same, including all the vehicle positions. So what you should really do is customize your airport positions on one machine and then copy the profiles over, which does work. If you just take the profile is just a text file. If you take that and copy it into the right place on your other machine, then GSX will see it and pick it up. The one difference is in the aircraft configuration. I'll talk about that in a moment. But the first and most important thing was I needed to get the keyboard synchronized. So I needed some way of effectively sending my key presses, and only the key presses that I cared about, from one machine to the next. And I hunted around for something that would do the job. Didn't find anything. I found lots of things that sort of half did the job but didn't really do what I wanted. I actually sat down and started writing my own, and I actually got it to a point where it worked within reason, but it wasn't very polished. I didn't really want to spend the days and weeks that it would take me to get it there, although at some point I might well continue with it because it might be a useful product. But then I happened to go and look at the Wideview website because I was looking to see if there was a new version of Wideview, and I knew that Luciano, the developer there, was looking to build a version for Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I was quite interested in seeing where he'd gotten to with that. And it reminded me that he has a product called Key to LAN. So let's have a quick look at that. So here's the Wideview webpage, and you can see there's Wideview, and obviously Wide Traffic's there as well. FS Earth Plus, which lets you track your flight on Bing Maps, I think. And then these two utilities, Key to Mouse, Key to LAN. So Key to Mouse does what it sounds like on the tin. It will let you translate a key press into the click of a mouse somewhere on the screen. And I have attempted to use that previously when I was trying to somehow adapt the Carenado G1000 gauges onto my G1000 hardware. An effort which was ultimately successful for reasons that I'm not going to go into here because it would take forever to explain it all. But Key to LAN, as it turns out, is exactly what we're looking for. So Key to LAN sends keyboard commands from one machine to another. As simple as that, really. One machine is the client, one machine is the server, and the server machine will send key combinations to the other machine. You define which key combinations you want to pick up on, and you give those names, and then on the client side you define the action that happens when those names come in. And one of the things that you can do is to execute a key press, and so what that does in effect is it transfers that key press from one machine to the other. So let's actually look at, and lots of planes leaving this morning. I'm quite tempted to turn off the traffic, but never mind, we'll just let it go past. So let's just get rid of this page. And I've already got Key to LAN running because it actually starts with my machine. This is the user interface, very simple. You can have multiple definition files, but I've put all of my mappings in the default definition file. And if I actually list and edit the macros, you can see all the macros that I've created. And there's a bunch of them, and most of these have nothing to do with GSX. They have to do with how I adapted the E-jets into the sim, which is the subject for another video. But if we pop down towards the bottom end, you can see here, entry number 20, GSX menu. That's actually Control Q. I've changed my GSX key combo through the coatl settings to be Control Q. Control F12, Control Shift F12 is the normal one. Pressing the function keys on my keyboards here requires a bit jiggery pokery with an additional function key you've got to hold down. So I changed them to Control X and Control Q and Control Shift Q. But obviously you can have whatever you like. You just have to pick up key to land so that it picks up on that key combo and does something with it. If I look at the details, it says basically you can restrict it so that it only picks up key presses when you're focused on a particular class of window or a particular named window. But in my case, I want to pick it up no matter where you are or what you're doing, so I leave those blank and I give it the defined key and I give it a name, which is GSX menu, and I said set to socket 0. Socket 0 is the name of the first client. You could have obviously multiple clients, so if you had 3 or 4 machines in your sim, you could broadcast this to all of them. But I've just got socket 0. Let's cancel out of that, and then the other ones that I have, you can see, are the numeric keys, through 0 through 9, and that's because you need those keys in order to select things from the GSX menu or the SimConnect menu once it's displayed. And on the client side, you have the same piece of software, and I've defined all of the same macros, and I've said in each case that we should generate that key press when it receives the macro from the server machine. Dead simple, not hard to do at all. In fact, you can do all of this through editing the K2L file directly, which is what I took to doing. They are exactly the same between both machines, whether it's client or server. So once you've got it all defined on the host, very easy to then just copy that file to the right place on the client and get it all going. And then all you need to do is to configure it so that it will start up when Windows starts up and loads the default file, and basically at that point I can fire and forget about it. So what this means is that when I press Control Shift Q or Control Q to bring up the GSX menu, that key combo will also be sent to my client machine. My client machine is also running GSX with the exact same settings, so in theory it should do the same thing at the same time as my host machine. In practice it takes quite a bit of getting it to work, but let's just demonstrate it now. So I'll split screen it so you can see this view and you can also see my outside view here. And I'm going to press the hash button, or the pound button I think some of you might call it, on my little numeric keypad. That is mapped to a key press of Control Q. So I press it, lo and behold, the GSX menu appears on both machines. Now obviously it's slightly annoying to have the big GSX menu pop up on your outside view like this, but there isn't really an alternative. You do need to see the menu because sometimes things will get out of sync, and when things get out of sync, if you keep on just pushing keys blindly, who knows what you're going to end up with. So you need to be able to see that. You can move this window right off the side of the screen so that it's essentially not visible and you can see it auto closes itself after a while, and then you could save the scenario and keep it down there permanently. But again, you wouldn't notice if anything had gone wrong. What I suggest, and what I'm probably going to do, is to have it on another display. So at the moment I only have 2 projectors connected to this machine and that's it. I'm going to connect a third display. I'm going to get a little 7-inch touchscreen display, which I will connect to the client machine, and I'll have it somewhere in the sim pit here so that I can see the menu pop up and potentially even touch it and do things with it if I needed to. It'll be quite useful to have that function anyway, so that's what I'm going to do about that, and then it will no longer appear large and proud on the screen like that. However, you can see that the basic principle does work. So let's press 7 to operate the stairs. Okay, so across both screens you can see the ballet of stairs is beginning. These stairs should take pretty much the same route to the door, so they should arrive at pretty much the same time on both aircraft. and if I were in the cockpit view, I'd be able to see the stairs passing by on my left here. So the rear stairs have parked, front stairs coming in. Stairs are in place. If you're wondering why the right side of the screen keeps blinking like that, there's a bug in Prepar3d. Whenever the sim generates a message, and I've turned the message window off but it doesn't seem to stop it, it causes every undocked window to flash. And unfortunately, undocked windows also includes my right hand view. So annoying as it is, there's really not much can be done about it until LM fixes the bug, which they've acknowledged. So hopefully they'll fix it before too long, maybe in the next hotfix, or version 5.2, whichever comes first. So let me just... Okay, let's pop back into the cockpit. This is where the aircraft configuration comes in. This is one place where you don't want things to be absolutely identical. So if I just move this display around a bit, you'll see that we are we have stairs docked at the front entrance and the service entrance at the back. Now, this aircraft, the Fielder Embraer E-Jets, has a limited number of working doors. So it has these two doors will open. However, these two doors around here do not open. Okay, they did in an earlier version of the product, but they've been taken away. Don't ask me why. And then the cargo doors will open. The cargo doors are all on this side. So that's fine from a GSX point of view, but obviously GSX needs to know about your doors and where they are in order to decide whether or not it needs to ask you to open them. And how this is done is on the aircraft configuration page. So if we say customize aircraft, you get a dialog like that. Now this profile was already there. I didn't create this profile, but I have amended it. So what you can do is click on one of the doors. So passenger door at the front, that's your front door. This is door number 1, and then it gives you an option. So you can you make it door with open close checks as FSX door number 1, 2, 3, or 4. Door without open close checks, door with custom open close checks, or say that there is no door. If there's no door, then obviously stairs will not park there. If it's a door without open close checks, then the stairs will park, and when you ask for boarding, etc., GSX will not tell you to open the door, and it will not wait for you to open the door in order to commence that activity. Well, that's not what you want, obviously, on this machine. You want it to wait for you to open the door, and you want it to wait for you to open all of the relevant doors. So I needed to go around and say which ones were which. So that's door with open close checks. There is no passenger door 2 there, and there is no cargo main there either, so they're both defined as not there. There is no passenger door 3 there, but there is passenger door 4. So it's got an open close checks. You notice it says FSX door number 1. That's actually wrong, but never mind. That should be door number 2. And then the service doors, likewise, I've put them in as doors without open close checks. I don't know why. Services 1 should have one. Sorry, cargo 1 rather. That should be door number 3. It's good when I do a video and find I've got things wrong. Not embarrassing at all. And that should be door number 4. There may be a reason why I did that, but let's assume that there wasn't. There is a problem with opening and closing doors, which you may have experienced yourself. So Shift E should open or close the main door of an aircraft. Indeed, that works. And so with the process that we've got here, we could export the Shift E control combination off to the client machine and have those that door opening synchronized. In theory, if you press Shift E2 in short order, then that should open the second exit, Shift E4, 3 and 4, and so on and so forth. However, for whatever reason, that doesn't seem to work very well in Prepared, and in particular it doesn't seem to work on this aircraft. So no amount of keyboard shortcutting would let me open anything other than the front door, which was a little bit dispiriting. So eventually, after much rooting around, I found a gauge that I could download, and this is an FS 2004 gauge, that's how old it is, which issues the right SimConnect commands to actually open the doors. and I've got it, you may just be able to see it down here. I've got it on my screen down here as a touch panel, and it lets me open control and close the exit. So for example, if I click on E1 here, you can see that exit 1 opens and closes, and exit 2 at the back will open and close, and so on and so forth. So that's how I take care of that. However, I don't have that capability on the client machine, and there's no way I'm going to operate the doors separately, and without a keyboard shortcut there's no easy way to do that. So what I did in the end was just set the aircraft config on the client machine so that all of the doors had no open close check, which you can do. If we go back to the aircraft editor, look at passenger door number 1, you can say that it's door without open close checks, and if that's the case, GSX will just go ahead and use it without waiting for you to open it. Since you can't actually see any of the doors from the cockpit position, this doesn't break the immersion. So that was my solution to that little problem. And once I cracked that, I was pretty much there. The only thing is making sure that all your settings are exactly the same. Then there is one other thing, and I'll go through that just later on in this video. We're going to move airports over to Amsterdam because I want to show you Jetway operations. But let's just do some passenger boarding and see how that works. So, okay, so I'll bring up the menu again, and this time I am going to request boarding. And you can see the baggage loader start to move. So it's going to want me to open the cargo doors. And there it is asking me to do that. So I'm going to open both cargo doors. First, come around, you can see them opening. The stairs are going to dock, and it will want me to open the passenger doors. And just to prove that this is all happening at the same time on the other machine, there is the outside view on the client machine. And you can see they're more or less simultaneous. It's not perfect. It's not 100% perfect. It's never going to be. There's a small amount of latency involved in shifting the keys around. So now I'm going to open both the passenger doors. Now you might have just seen the passenger bus there driving into the building. Yes, that's annoying, but here at London City you load from the gate door, not from the bus. However, what you will now see is my clever little hack. So as long as you're prepared to ignore the bus driving into the terminal building, or alternatively shift your view so that you don't see it, what you will start to get is this. And there's the crew, admittedly walking straight through a GPU. The idea is they're walking from the terminal building. That was another little hack that I can tell you about. We're not getting the passengers on the client machine. I'm not entirely sure why, to be honest with you. The settings are pretty much identical, so, and the bus is there. If we shift the view around, you can see there's the bus hiding behind the building right there. So the passengers should be animating, but for some reason they're not. Don't know why. Now, again, from the cockpit view, you're not going to see them anyway. I mean, you could potentially see them just over there. I don't know what it is. I'll chase that down. In theory, it ought to work. There's the cargo loaded. In the meantime, the crew bus will disappear from behind that building and be replaced by the passenger bus. I'm going to close the rear cargo door now. Oops, that was the front cargo door. Never mind. Right, so there is there's the crew, not the flight crew, the passenger service crew. Some of them boarding by the rear stairs, some of them boarding by the front stairs. If we bring it around a little bit like that, you can see the animation's gotten better, and the synchronization with scenery objects, so they walk up the stairs reasonably realistically now. But yeah, the purpose of this is not to show GSX running all the way through, because you would have seen that already. So that's how passenger boarding can work. The trick to make the passenger bus move, by the way, from where it would normally park, because it would normally park just off the wingtip there, and there goes the crew bus departing, you can hear it, is a little bit sneaky. So let me just reset everything. If we bring up Windows Explorer, and then I need to go to this location. So it's in your app data roaming virtually airplanes fill their POC 170. So this is the aircraft profile that we were editing in the text in the visual editor earlier. And there are things in here that you cannot edit through that UI, but which you can edit here. And one of those is a variable called wingtip pause, and that says basically how far away from the center of the aircraft is the tip of the wing. And obviously the wings on the Embraer E-Jets are not 45 meters long, but I set them to 45 meters long. This doesn't appear to have any effect other than to send some of the vehicles a little bit around the houses, and in particular it changes where the passenger bus will park, because the passenger bus obviously needs to park off the side of the aircraft. By pushing it there, I'm able to get it parking behind the building, and thus the passengers can walk through. Now, unfortunately, that's the only control I have. I can't move the passenger bus forward or backward. Certainly, I've not found any way to do that. Yeah, more annoying aircraft. Really not sure why there are still aircraft when I've turned off wide traffic, but it may be that it's loaded a bunch of BGLs that the sim is just executing on. Normally that would have gone away, but anyway. You can play about with that number to get this kind of effect if you want it. Fundamentally, London City is a very difficult airport for GSX to cover, because it's very non-standard in terms of what it does, and there's not an awful lot of space for airport vehicles to park and manoeuvre in. So getting London City working with any level of fidelity is a challenge. Obviously this is not how ground services at London City really work, but it's the closest approximation that I could get, and couple that with the ability to network GSX the way that I'm describing in this video, you can actually get reasonably close to meaningful ground procedures even at London City. If only there was some way to remove that GPU. There probably is. I can go into the airport design editor and remove it. In an ideal world, the passengers would actually come out of that door, and some of them do, but they do take slightly random paths, and unfortunately there's not much that you can do to control that. So it's a hack. It's one that I like. Must remember to close these doors. Very much up to you if it's something you wanted to do, but if you do, that's how you can do it. So that's the basics covered. Obviously you need to edit the airport positions here so that vehicles are in sensible places. I trust if you use GSX you know how to do that, so it's not something I'm going to go over, but I did a fair amount of customization for London City, particularly at this parking spot, which is the one I normally use, to get the effect that I was looking for. However, what London City doesn't have is jetways, and jetways are quite a big part of GSX, so let's go and visit an airport that does have them. Alright, so here we are at Amsterdam Airport. This is Flytampers Amsterdam, and this airport has jetways. Now the default jetways are non-operable, they are just static scenery, but you can, using GSX, replace the jetways with sewed jetways, which is what I'd previously done. That did seem to cause quite a big stutter on approach when the airport was loading and all the jetways were obviously being superimposed. So I've now gone down to just having the one jetway here generated by sewed and left the rest alone. For some reason they're not showing up, the ordinary default jetways are not showing up on my host machine here, but they were, so I don't exactly know what's happened there. One of the many mysteries of flight simming is that weird things just seem to stop working for no good reason. Of course, as a software developer, I know there's no such thing as no good reason. There's a reason, it's just I haven't worked out what it is yet. But we'll get there. Anyway, we have a jetway at this particular parking. So let's imagine that I've just done the flight from London City to Amsterdam, which is a flight I am going to do and film later on, by the way. And I'm parked here and all is good. So in theory, when I invoke GSX, I should get the same state on both machines, because both aircraft are in the exact same position. However, there is a wrinkle that you need to be aware of if you're using Wideview, and I think this may apply to OpusFSI as well, I'm not entirely sure, which is, and if we bring up the menu for Wideview, in its view setup menu, there's an option here to raise the client's aircraft by X number of inches to prevent stutters on taxi. I think by default it's at 6 inches. I've obviously experimented a little bit, made it 12. That's all well and good, but here's the problem. If your client aircraft is not actually touching the ground, GSX will not see it as having parked. So you'll get a different set of menus. You'll get the whole which gate are you going to want to park at menu that you would get on approach, as opposed to the I'm at the parking space, now give me some ground services menu that you would expect. So you have to have this turned off, and the aircraft has to be touching the ground in order for this to work. So let's go back. So I have got that set up, so they both are in the same place. So in theory, we should get the same menu. So let me push the button. Now this time you're seeing the GSX menu on the host computer, because in the last scenario I actually had it parked off on another screen, which I forgot you couldn't see. But on this one you can. So don't know why it was highlighting pushback and departure, but we seem to be getting the same screen. So you can see up here, activate ground services, down here, activate ground services. So, okay. Also, something else you may well have on by default, because I think it's now on by default in P3D 5.1. If you go to key assignments, other controls, there is, under mouse controls, a checkbox for enable advanced mouse controls. You need to turn that off. It does a number of things. When you right click, it positions your mouse cursor the way it was last, a bunch of stuff like that. It breaks the GSX menu in subtle ways, so you'll find that you've invoked the menu but it won't take a key press, for example, and all of that is to do with this advanced mouse control. So turn it off. Not to say you won't get problems occasionally anyway, because this is, to be honest, quite a flaky solution. Just nature of the beast. Flight sim seems to be a little bit flaky, what can I say? But that should solve most of your problems. So, okay, I just brought up my little door control panel there, since I'm going to need it. So, let's get the Jetway working. Select the menu. Operate the Jetway. It's going to ask you for your handler. It's going to ask you for the Jetway. There's only the one. It's going to ask you to confirm. Same sequence on both machines, and now both machines are doing the same thing. So you can see the Jetway deploying, and then on the exterior camera you should just be able to see the Jetway deploying over here. Quite a nice animation on this Jetway. It's not, 100% realistic, but it's not bad. Fortunately, you can see it clipping on the left side here. That's unfortunately just a P3D rendering engine thing. There's not much I can do about that.
Complete, and the aircraft's clear.
Thank you, GSX. I wish it didn't do that, but it does. Whether it'll do it on all aircraft, I do not know, but it definitely does it on this aircraft. Okay, Jetway is attached. Now we should be able to request deboarding. Now then, remember that I've got all the doors on the client machine as no check, whereas I've got the ones here as check. So you do need to act smartly when GSX wants you to, because otherwise passengers will start coming off at the wrong time. So the cargo door should open, and the next beep will be it wanting me to open the passenger door. There you go. Baggage trains are in motion.
Baggage handling complete, and the aircraft's clear.
I can see the baggage trains moving on my right hand side here. And now I've got passengers disembarking off the left. Just come around and see if they started disembarking here yet. So that's, there you go, yeah. They started disembarking there. So, very slight lack of synchronization in terms of the passengers disembarking, but honestly, are you going to notice that? And also, actually, if you just open the door proactively when the Jetway connects, then they'll probably start deboarding at exactly the same time. They're not the same models. They seem, I think, to come out in a relatively random order. So there's no guarantee you're going to get the same people at the same time. But, you know, GSX here is effectively networked. Passengers are disembarking on both machines. I can see them at my window. I can see the vehicles doing their thing out here. And then on this outside display on my host, I can see all of the GSX ground operations, which is pretty much all you want. And you know, it goes without saying that the refueling and the catering, etc., will all be synchronized as long as you've got all the settings identical. As mentioned before, the reason my right display here is flickering is because GSX is generating messages saying deboarded 70 passengers, deboarded 70 passengers. Even though I've turned the message window off, every time it generates a message, it's causing the undocked windows to flash. It's very annoying. If I had any undocked windows on my host, they'd be flashing as well. Until Lockheed fixes that, not a lot we can do about it. I think I know why I'm not getting the default Jetways at Amsterdam here on the host. It's because I've got the scenery complexity level set to sparse. I think it might actually turn off the Jetways when you do that. It certainly turned off the ground vehicles, etc. I'll have to play with that. I have it on sparse for frame rate reasons. It is possible to edit. Let me just close the cargo door since the cargo service is done. It's possible to edit the airport so that you can change what appears at what level. But to be honest, I'd probably have this on normal scenery flying in here anyway. It's only really the London area where normal is not giving me great performance. So what I'm looking for here is for the deboarding to stop at roughly the same time on both machines. That's really the final measure. And that would be because GSX has calculated the same number of passengers on each machine. Without seeing the actual text messages, I don't know how many it thinks it's got to do. I'm just looking at the disembarking figures to see if they are coming off in the same sequence. So it should be woman in a black dress on the host. No, doesn't look like it. In fact, the host Jetway is now empty whilst the client Jetway still has people on it. Again, not perfect synchronization. What are you going to do? But again, in a normal flight scenario, I wouldn't be looking at the host display anyway. It's only because I'm videoing it at the moment. I'd be looking at the client display, and so that's all I would see. Anyway, that I think demonstrates the technique. Again, I've got to stress it's reliant on everything being exactly the same between both machines. You've got to have exactly the same scenery installed. It's got to be configured exactly the same way. You have to have exactly the same GSX settings for exactly the same gates. You can't edit them on one and not edit them on the other. The only thing that can and should be different is the aircraft configuration, so that on the client machine the aircraft doesn't do the door checks. But other than that, the positioning of the doors, the positioning of the airport vehicles, all the rest of it should be the same. So my advice is to do it on one machine and copy the files across. If you don't know where the files are, I can point you to those. Let me just bring up my Windows Explorer. And so the aircraft configuration file for the hacking of the wingtip position, that's to be found here, app data roaming virtually airplanes. If we go up a level from there, and again inside the GSX folder, there are all of the customization files for your airport. So in this case, mine is called EHAM Cartagena. It's called Cartagena because I've downloaded somebody else's customization file and then I've been making changes to it. It is just a text file which details all of the customizations that you have for this particular aircraft, particular airport, sorry. So all you need to do is to copy this over to your other machine and make sure there are no other files for the same airport. If there are, delete them, and it should just work. One problem that I did have, you've got to make sure your airport configs are exactly the same. It's not unusual for an airport configurator to make a different BGL file active. So for example, here at Flight Tampa Amsterdam, there are different runway configurations. You can have like an east configuration, a west configuration, a north and south, or an all configuration, depending on which runways will be open to traffic. And it's slightly more realistic, obviously, to pick the one that's relevant to the wind on the day that you're flying. However, that will change the BGL for the main BGL for the airport that is being loaded. Now, GSX attaches its customizations based on the name of the BGL. So if you change the BGL, suddenly all your customizations disappear. So if you must be able to do that, then the answer is that you have to have a GSX profile for each of those BGLs. So you need to copy it multiple times. Otherwise, make sure that both airports are configured to use the same BGL at the same time, or else you won't get all of your customizations, and again, all of this stuff will not work. So there you go. That's how I got GSX to work over a network. It's far from perfect. It's flaky and sometimes goes wrong, although in every case where it's gone wrong, I've found that there's a reason for it eventually, and I'm sure I'll get it to nice smooth operation. You need the key to LAN utility or something very similar, but to be honest, I think key to LAN is probably the only one that's out there to push your key presses from one machine to the other, and then you need to set up all the key presses correctly. Once you do that, you can navigate through the menus simultaneously, and provided all the states are the same, you should get the same menus and therefore the same actions at the same time. And that is how you make GSX work over a network. So feel free to try it out if you want to. You should be aware of the licensing for GSX. So check the license. The license may well say that you're only licensed to use it on one machine, in which case you would need multiple licenses. So please make sure you comply with the license requirements. And give it a go, see if it works for you. Well, I hope that was useful. If you liked the video, then please hit the like button, and if you want to subscribe to the channel, I would more than welcome you. Hit the subscribe button, but if you do, don't forget to hit a bell icon to be alerted when I post a video, because the schedule on this channel is, shall we say, somewhat irregular. But there should be a little flurry of videos over the next couple of weeks, documenting my experiences with the Embraer E-Jet here, and how I adapted it into my sim. And then I'll be topping it off with a final flight from London City to here in Amsterdam, just to demonstrate it all working. So, thank you for sticking with me, and I hope to see you back on the channel very soon.